All right, so I'm going to go over some news here. All right, so the news that we're going to talk about this week. Now, I pulled together several articles. So these are not all from this week, but I've been doing a lot of research on AI interviewing. And when I say AI interviewing, I don't mean people using AI to cheat on interviews or people using AI to help them prepare for interviews. I'm talking about actual AI agents calling you and talking to you, right? And so there's a lot going on around that front. And I wanted to start the conversation just kind of setting the stage. Like, I think we're getting used to interacting with AI, especially the younger generations. And I was a little bit skeptical of AI interviewing. And I will say that I've been doing demos with a lot of them, and they really are starting to feel human. There's First off, you can choose your voice when you're setting it up. I had the stories I've heard so far, one of them was like, watch, and it was, Snoop Dogg, doing, it was like, sound like Snoop Dogg. And so they were doing the whole Snoop Dogg thing. And then another one was, you can kind of choose male or female or accent. So you can even get very regional. Like if you're in Louisiana and you want to sound like a local, right? They'll even mimic a voice of a local. And in a funny story, there was an Indian staffing firm that said they wanted theirs to be done with an Indian voice because they didn't want to disappoint them when they actually started talking to a real person. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, that's interesting, right? Because it's weeding out the people who would find that frustrating. Or, but anyway, that was their choice, and I so that's amazing. First off, so it feels very authentic. I haven't come across one yet that doesn't feel like AI. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could tell it's a machine, but you also they're kind of, hi, this is Jeremy, and I am an artificial intelligence interviewer for said company. And then, you know what, you can have it, you could program an intro. So how funny to say, I'm an AI interviewer with said company. That's better than a black hole, right? So the AI can even make you laugh, and so I've been really impressed. I've demoed probably a dozen in the last 6 weeks, and there are glitches, right? So first conversation, why you are better off being interviewed by AI than a human. That is a Forbes article, if you want to look that up. Why you're better talking to AI than a human. And so it's written May 25th by Tom Chamorro Prezumic. And so number one reason, bias, right? Like, AI can remove bias. Obviously, there's the debate on the human bias being introduced, but you can monitor it and you can correct it. And then you're not having to correct 200 hiring managers nationwide with their own opinions. You're having to correct one system that is then doing it. They can focus on relevant signals. These are the key points of the article that I'm pulling out. Learning, adaptation, and consistency. So as you're learning from what people are saying and how it's affecting things, you can adapt and it goes out at scale. Transparency, if these are built correctly. And something, Jackie, you and I, when we were at a former company, well, a couple of former companies, it was hard to illustrate why candidates were selected over others. Now these new models are incredibly transparent. There are studies that show candidates often prefer AI over humans, and then AI excels in structured assessments. And then the final note is human contact is still important, but should be later, right? So what's everybody's thoughts on this? First off, have you done one yet?
I'll jump in. I did one. Working with just one company, and did both sides where I was the candidate and the interviewer. The challenge I have is people keep saying that the systems are not going to be biased or as biased as people. That's assuming that someone who's not biased actually built the model that they're using, and we haven't gotten to that point. And there's bias in what is non-biased enough in the platform. Like there's no standardization of going into the systems, and so it might be appealing to someone who's done this job before, but maybe a new hiring manager wants to tweak it a certain way, and it doesn't have the anticipation of what's going on within the world to make those changes. And so I think it's great, but I mean, I think, and I've worked with some, I thought the product that I worked was really good, but what got me nervous is that it didn't explain very well to me when I was a candidate how I was being evaluated. On the hiring manager side, it said it was going to give me on a score. And at the time, I was trying to figure out, I got an alert and notification and I opened it. And the product said that I was more than likely deceptive because I was opening up tabs as I was going through in the interview, and said that I
Wow.
was a fraudulent person. I recorded it, it'll be out. And I was like, it's called me, like told me that, not that there could have been, it said I was deceptive. And so
Wow. I've got
Holy
it. Don't say it
cow.
on this. Don't say it on this call, but I want to know what company, if you could.
you shouldn't have invited me in. I said, Jeremy's gonna be in trouble inviting me in here.
No, I'm good. I'm good. That's why we're here. That's why we're
So
here.
I'm a little bit concerned and wondering the bias behind it. And I also need, if I'm going to be doing that, then the product needs to say that they're not going to sell my information to anybody else, a little bit more clear, that they're not going to say that I'm deceptive to everybody else and all the other bots that I talk to.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that
Yeah.
is insane. Was that recently?
Yeah. That was like a couple months ago.
I saw something earlier in the week about the interview giving the candidate the feedback, and I was like, that's a little bit risky. Like, we don't as humans disclose our judgments. Do you see what I'm saying? And so that to me is an interesting choice, that they would disclose it to everyone, because like it was your first one and you had that negative experience, and now that's, I don't know, how do you recover from that? And then what do you do if people start talking on Reddit about that? How many of those conversations can you have going? What were you going to say, David?
I was just going to say, I think to a certain extent, maybe the thought is that hiding behind an AI is safer. So if I'm, and I've been on the receiving end, as a candidate, I've done a couple AI interviews, but didn't know it until I got on the call, number one. But number two, yeah, I think as far as candidate feedback goes, I throughout my whole experience have never like championed trying to give candidate feedback in the moment or resume feedback in the moment. So that's something that I kind of steer away from. So because it's a slippery slope and it's a no-win situation, right? But if your unbiased AI program is giving feedback and responses to a candidate as far as their performance goes in that interview, I mean, if I'm the candidate and I want to push back on that, or in any way, if I want to respond anyway, I don't know if I can even do that, number one. And if I could, who would I go to? Like, how would I get around the AI gatekeeper to have that conversation, or to, in whatever context, whether positive or negative? If I disagree with the feedback, I can't do anything. If I agree and want more information about, okay, how do I improve and get better? How do I do that? You can't. So, and then for me as a candidate, having gone through AI interviews, I've done, I think, 3 in the last probably 6 months. And the biggest thing for me was interesting was that just how real, it's super scary how real everything is, right? As far as just conversational level. But I giggled inside because 2 of the 3 interviews, the AI system would coach me and tell me, now take some deep breaths. Let's just focus. Let's just, not getting too weird, but yeah, but just, just take a deep breath. We're here to learn more about you, and we know you've got great skills to offer. And I'm like thinking, what? It was weird. It was just weird. So, and I'm like, I mean, I don't know, I think we're all about the same age here-ish, right? I'm old school Gen X, right? So I'm like, it was weird to even, number one, for me, my first AI interview, have that experience, and secondly, take instruction about how to feel from a bot. And just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to be coached. I'm a big boy. I dressed myself, I ate breakfast, and I'm ready to go. I don't need to be coached by a bot telling me to center myself or to relax. That's all good and well, but I didn't need that as a candidate. So that's just my response. But yeah, it's weird.
David's a big boy, but he is sitting among his baseball cards.
I didn't
Yes,
say
exactly.
not one word. I did not say one word.
Yeah, he's a big
I'm
boy,
a
but he's got his ball cap and his hoodie and his baseball cards.
That's right. That's right.
So, all right. So, Robbie, have you come across any of these?
I haven't personally come across any, but I have an interesting conversation recently. I went to live for golf tournament, so I was invited to the broadcasting room. I was talking to the broadcaster there. I was asking the guy first said, "Oh, what is it that you like AI to do?" And he was just basically tired of hearing AI. He's like, "I'm tired of this AI. I don't want AI, but it could be interesting for commentators to have a AI commentator." That was kind of a
Mm-hmm.
little bit for me. The first thing in general, it relates to what we're also talking here today for the interviews. So to me, the first reaction was the reason why these golf or any other games get so lively is because of the commentators, the emotion, the experience, right? So now you're
That's the
taking
only way golf gets lively.
right. That
Yeah.
is true. But then at the same time, if you're trying to impersonate with other people, voice wise, that kind of takes away the whole experience in general. So to me, it there is a lot of compliance and legal, all kinds of issues. I'm not even going there. But the second issue is how is it going to make me as an audience feel better about it? Because you're taking away that human emotion, the really the personal touch. I
Yeah.
get I'm there, the live experience. It's live, right? So putting AI, there is no live anymore. Even though you're saying live in this particular interview case, it's not live because it's a machine that is just basically, I mean, it's not a live person. I think that is part of the live
Yeah.
means. So
Well, let me like jump in. I think that's a great point, right? So there's got to be like a positive and a negative, right? So I think, and total fail on my part for not getting other generations on this call. I think Robbie's the youngest in the room. I don't. The rest of us are pretty solid Gen X. And so yeah, we should have had some younger perspectives on this. However, I went through, so I left my prior employer, JP Morgan, in my last day was in May. I knew that was going to happen for about 45 days. So I started submitting resumes. And I think my number was 95 jobs I applied to. I haven't had any interviews and I haven't had much contact. I've had automated rejections, but really nothing's happened. And so the workflows that I'm seeing for these, and so you can imagine jobs go up, they get 300 applicants, and then you're just kind of lost in it, right? What I'm seeing with these AI interview platforms is they're opening jobs. The minute someone applies, they're getting a text, they're doing an interview, it's getting scored. Once there are enough people to have a slate of candidates, so say that number is set at 4 or 5, once there are 4 or 5 who score above a certain threshold, the job's being unposted and everyone who applied knows they got a shot, right? And so yes, it's not quite as cool as a human to me in my generation. However, if I got a shot, that would have felt better than every other experience I had a couple of months ago, right? And so that to me is kind of the, whether or not that was a good shot is totally different. Jackie, I think your point is well received. So all right, so there are some, I don't know, I see a lot of people being really bullish about it, and then I see other people shying away. So recently it went viral, the Red Sox were doing AI interviews. And I was like, well, that's cool. The Red Sox are doing AI interviews. So I started reading about it, and people were talking about, I got interviewed for front office position at the Red Sox using AI. And so I'm like, cool, the Red Sox are on it, right? And then the Red Sox came out 24 hours later and they're like, no, it was HireVue. So it was basically an asynchronous recorded interview, not AI, right? And so they wanted everyone to know that they're not using AI. That would not be cool. They're using HireVue asynchronous interviewing, right? And which to me, HireVue is very respected, but and the funniest thing is HireVue's, I'm sure if you ask them, it's on the roadmap, that they're going to have an AI interviewing platform soon. They're just not there yet. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. I was proud of them for doing it. And then they released a clarification. We're not doing that, So anyway, any other comments on that topic before I move on to some other things?
Yeah, how are you going to gloss over and say HireVue is really respected? No, they're not, because of the one-way interview. They're not respected. And they've had a problem with this biases since the first HireVue, since they first came out 1 million years ago in Utah with their product. People were complaining and they've gotten dinged before. Like
so when I tell you, like, when I say they've had problems and they've survived, which, you know what I'm saying? So legally, they're probably like, because you've got new companies that are doing the AI interviewing that have not been through. You and I have been with companies that have been sued, and the care that those companies take once that happens is big, right? So I agree with you that they've had a lot of negative press. However, they've survived under scrutiny, which,
But I want them to say something. Like, the thing is that as soon as that comes out, I know that they're a client. It's like, let's talk a little bit more about it. Like, it's an opportunity. They missed a learning opportunity there. And so that's what I mean by saying it would have been great for them to come out and say, listen, we've been down this road before. We've already proven ourselves. We know why people are still utilizing this. This is why Red Sox is smart for doing this. You should be doing this too. I'm so excited that it got that good, because people used to challenge us with blah, 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 blah. Maybe they need a new comms person. Like, that was a full missed opportunity.
No, I agree.
For them to be able to do that. And it was a real learning curve for other people who are using that. But it also goes back to, perception is everything. And deploying AI without context is really important. And it kind of leads into what we just talked about with the other thing. If you're not sure what it's doing, how it's scoring, how you're being evaluated, being in the New York Post is not an exciting moment to have that. I mean, you can get that on your own. No. It's on my top 10 pictures is being in the New
Jackie, this is a really boring question, but I know that you always have looked at AI algorithm ethics.
Yeah.
Right. So what about the third-party evaluations that people are asking, the third-party bias audits? Do you know much about that at this point?
Yes. A New York 144. I've been digging deep on those. The thing that's interesting, it's not really boring. It's actually kind of exciting, is that they're trying to get you to say that you've been through an audit process, but they have allowed you to opt out. That's what's interesting about the third party.
My question of kind of where I was going for this, like, okay, so you've been through a third-party bias audit. Nobody has really defined what that is yet, right? So you and I could open a company tomorrow and say we do third-party bias audits, and Ravi could put it on his website that he went through our third-party bias audit, right? I mean, am I wrong in saying that it hasn't really been defined what that means yet?
No, and you can do that, And that's the thing that's so important to remember. You're still going to be held accountable, even if you went through a third-party auditing system as an organization. It doesn't alleviate you from whatever the disparate impact is. But the part where I wanted to let people know is that it also allows you to opt out on a certain parameters. And so everybody, there's a glitch in the system, which is allowing people to not be transparent with the third-party. They still haven't gotten it right, but it'll be interesting. I think we'll have more impact from the EU AI regulations that are coming down, or being really more specific than we're seeing here in the States, but they're trying to evaluate it. There was over 400 bills that were introduced into Congress on how to regulate AI and hiring decisions. So stay tuned. You're going to be busy with that if you're going to have news.
there is
Robbie, have you been? I was going to go to you now because I know you probably are. You getting hit up by a bunch of these organizations that do third-party bias audits?
No, organizations are hitting me, but as far as the companies goes, organizations are interested in getting like a responsible, how AI is being implemented in the company. That's kind of most of the questions we get. But in general, not everyone is also asking. But companies that are selling the third-party AI bias, they constantly, reach out to see. But currently, not much actually. Previously, a few months back, it was, but currently, for obvious reasons, I think people are not reaching out because they don't. I think it's not as important as it was before. Again, it may be another topic that we may need to get into, which I'm trying to not to. But
I think Jackie would go. You could bait Jackie probably very easily there.
Absolutely.
No, I think Jackie probably
Jump right in it.
Right. But in general, what I also want to bring up to you all here is, so for example, a simple thing, when you do a search in any platform, since we're all related to HR, so when you get the results, one of the things I see often is if you have, let's say a 70% of one category agents qualify for, qualify for a particular role that you're looking for, and 20% white, 5% Asian, 5% Black, African, or Hispanic qualify for a particular role, and your results are as such for the landscape. My thing is, what are we doing in order to make sure everyone is getting a fair opportunity from page one of the search results? Because these are all qualified candidates instead of showing just one category of candidates, right? Mm-hmm. Because traditionally speaking, that's what being one of the biggest problems, in my opinion, right? So it's not about that to me is a bias, right? So there is an ethical approach there, whatever you want to call it as ethical AI. So to me, that is something we are trying to achieve even now, whether we need to get audited or we have to check a box. But in general, our approach has been like that to make sure that everyone is fairly represented. I think that's the first and foremost thing any platform should be doing in general, to be just want to add that point. Then we can talk about other things, but what are we doing in terms of, okay, you have all these qualified candidates, but how are we representing them?
Yeah, for sure.
Effort, so
I love that, Robbie. Now let me jump in. Okay, so there's some really funny viral AI interview things if you want to get on TikTok and find them. There's one where it just starts repeating Pilates bar, Pilates bar, Pilates bar, and it does it 14 times. It's pretty funny. And then the other glitches that I'll see are, it'll just kind of start. You remember back in the early 2000s, we called it buffering. It'll just start buffering, and so people will have funny videos of them, and they'll be all dressed up for an interview, and the AI will be doing weird things. And so I think we obviously have to get through that. I don't know that we can hold the companies accountable. That's probably more of an issue of the systems that the data is running through, not the programming from the company, right? That could be somewhere on the communication channels that is causing that. But yeah, it is going to take some getting used to for people. One other comment I wanted to make. So David Manister at ERE has returned to writing. So he has, if you guys read ERE.net, David is the founder. And for many years he didn't write, but he has returned to writing, and it reminds me of why he must have started ERE in the first place. He's a great writer. He's having some really good observations, but one of the articles that was posted this week was Inside Fortune Brands Talent-Led Transformation, right? And so the interesting thing about this is we've got AI. I hear a lot of organizations, yeah, we have demand, but we don't want to hire it because AI is going to do it all next year. We need to figure out what we're going to do with AI before we hire more recruiters, okay? And then we've got people getting laid off because of AI. And then this article, Inside Fortune Brands Talent-Led Transformation on ERE, it was posted June 19th, talks about how Fortune Brands is mandating return to office, and they're assuming a very large percentage is not going to do it, right? So what does that mean? That means recruiting has lots of work to do. And I'm sure they're all celebrating, oh, awesome. We have 75% of our company isn't going to move to this place. And so now we all have jobs for the next 2 years while we backfill all these people who are refusing to move. So we've all been complaining about return to office, but it might be the only thing to save you if you are a recruiter and your company is evaluating AI. So anyway, kind of an ironic post. We may become the biggest fans of return to office mandates. What do you guys think?
Well, return the office in the context of everyone else except recruiting. I'm on board for that. That'd be great.
That's perfect. But that's the other thing is like the good recruiters in this whole movement, you know, they'll probably have to use contract recruiters to get all the right people to move to the office.
That's so ironic.
So anyway, yeah. So
anyway, I've been in Santa Barbara this past week recording at LinkedIn. But I've worked at home for over 15 years. I had overnight oats for the first time, so I might go back to the office.
Yeah.
Before.
Were you at a LinkedIn office or some media place?
LinkedIn, it's in LinkedIn Learning office. I would gain all of my weight, but I was like, I don't know how there was food everywhere. So I was like, this could be exciting. I'm, like you said,
well, if you got to live in Goleta or Santa Barbara.
Fully.
Yeah, Goleta, Santa Barbara.
Fully relocate if they get a housing stipend to anywhere in California. Let me just
Santa Barbara is probably one of the cooler places. You're not too far from there, are you, David?
I'm about an hour north of you, Jackie. San Luis Obispo.
That's close enough. I'll move in with David.
There we go.
Pay for me and Todd.
If anybody at LinkedIn Learning needs somebody to record some training and they don't want to have to fly them in, David's an hour north.
There we go.
So look David up. Well, very cool. Well, Jackie, I congratulate you on doing LinkedIn Learning training. Given our past employers, they must really like you.
Heck of a story.
Yeah. Given the things we've been through with them. All right, so I want to flip the script a little bit. Ravi is the founder of Proven Base. Full disclosure, my name's Jeremy Roberts. I work at Heiser Talent. And Ravi is one of my clients. So I work with Ravi on customer success and go-to-market strategy and all the things. So Ravi is the founder of Proven Base. So I wanted to give Ravi a chance to kind of share what Proven Base is doing and show the product. The first thing, and I think this is why on a practitioner-led call, I feel comfortable having Ravi. Ravi is very kind and generous and gives back. One thing that Proven Base is doing is any recruiters or sourcers who are between jobs, he will give you free access to help with your job search. And I thought that was a great gesture. And by the way, if you take that access, you get trained by David. And so you get to hang out with David and Ravi. All right.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win.